There is one thing a woman will never, and I mean absolutely never, offer to a man unless she is fully, deeply, and beyond doubt emotionally invested in him. And no, it has nothing to do with her phone, her passwords, or any surface-level privacy people usually assume. It is something far more personal. Something so emotionally exposed that most men don't even realize it's being given when it happens. In fact, research published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships in 2023 revealed something striking. Nearly 78% of men fail to notice the exact moment a woman becomes emotionally committed to them. 78%. That means there's a real chance someone could be sitting in front of you right now who has already emotionally chosen you, while you're still trying to figure out where the relationship even stands. And that's the part most people miss. Because what I'm about to break down isn't obvious. It isn't loud. And it definitely doesn't look like what movies have taught you love is supposed to look like. But if you understand it, it changes how you interpret every interaction from that point forward. Especially the final sign I'll get to later, the one that clearly separates a woman who simply enjoys your presence from one who is emotionally anchored to you in a life-altering way. Here's the truth most men are never told. Feminine desire does not fall into love in dramatic announcements. It doesn't arrive with confessions or grand emotional speeches. It unfolds quietly, almost invisibly, through subtle behaviors that are easy to overlook if you don't know what you're seeing. Love for a woman is rarely declared. It is revealed in fragments. And here is where it becomes important for you to understand this clearly. If you consistently miss those fragments, she won't keep repeating them. Not because her feelings disappear, but because she starts to feel unseen in them. And a woman who feels emotionally invisible doesn't argue about it. She withdraws from it. Slowly, quietly, in a way you don't immediately recognize until the emotional distance is already there. One day, you just notice she feels different, and you can't quite explain why. So let's slow this down and go through the signals that only show up when a woman is genuinely emotionally invested. Not casually interested, not temporarily attached, but emotionally rooted. And the first one is usually the one most men misinterpret completely. It begins with her past. Specifically, her emotional wounds. When a woman starts opening up about her childhood in a deeper way, she is not trying to entertain you or fill silence. She is letting you see parts of her story that were never meant for casual access. Not the polished memories, but the uncomfortable ones. The tension in her home growing up. The emotional neglect she never fully named, the experiences that shaped how she trusts people today. At that moment, she is not just telling you a story, she is offering you context for her emotional reactions. According to clinical psychologist Dr. Sue Johnson, emotional vulnerability is one of the strongest indicators of attachment formation between partners. In simple terms, people do not expose their emotional wounds to someone they are uncertain about. They expose them to someone they believe will not weaponize them. And this is where most men misunderstand the moment. Instead of just being present, they try to solve it. They shift into fixing mode. They offer advice, explanations, solutions. But she is not asking for a repair job. She is asking for emotional presence. She wants to feel that you can sit with what she says without trying to erase it, dismiss it, or reroute it into logic. Because for her, being heard without being corrected is what safety feels like. And emotional safety is where attachment begins. But that's only the first layer. The next level is even more revealing because it has to do with how she sees herself when she is with you, especially in her most unfiltered moments, her physical insecurities. This is where something subtle but powerful happens. A woman who is guarded will always present a controlled version of herself. She will adjust, filter, manage perception. But when she begins to let that guard down around you, when she shows up without the emotional armor of perfection, you are seeing a different psychological state entirely. When she says things like she feels unattractive, bloated, or insecure about her body, she is not necessarily asking for validation in the simple sense. She is testing emotional safety. Because statistically, according to research in the International Journal of Eating Disorders, over 90% of women report some level of dissatisfaction with their body image. That means nearly every woman carries private insecurities she rarely voices out loud. So when she chooses to voice them to you, she is essentially saying one thing beneath the words, "Will you still see me the same way after I show you this?" And your response matters more than you realize. Not because she is keeping score in the moment, but because her mind stores emotional reactions as long-term reference points. Every response becomes data for how safe she feels being fully herself around you. Then there is something even more overlooked, something most men mistake for comfort when it is actually emotional intimacy at its purest level. Her silence. Not awkward silence, not forced silence, but the kind where nothing needs to be said for the moment to feel complete. Psychological research from the University of Groningen highlights that humans typically begin to feel discomfort in silence after only a few seconds in conversation. Yet when someone can sit in silence with another person without tension, it indicates a high level of emotional safety and bonding. For women especially, who are often socially conditioned to maintain emotional engagement, conversation flow, and relational harmony, choosing silence is not emptiness. It is trust. It means she doesn't feel the need to perform for your attention. She doesn't feel pressure to fill space. She is simply there, fully present, without anxiety about being misunderstood or replaced in the moment. And that kind of presence only exists where emotional attachment is already formed. Then comes something even more revealing, something most men hear but don't decode properly. Her future includes you. When she casually says things like, "We should go there someday," or "You'd like that place," or "Next year we could," she is not speaking randomly. She is projecting you into her mental timeline. The Gottman Institute, which has studied long-term relationship stability for decades, refers to this as the formation of shared future narratives. In emotionally bonded relationships, partners naturally begin to include each other in future scenarios without conscious effort. And language reveals everything here. When uncertainty exists, her language is detached. Maybe, we'll see, I'm not sure. But when emotional investment is real, language shifts. It becomes inclusive. We, us, our. At that point, you are no longer just someone she is spending time with. You are someone she has already integrated into her internal map of what comes next. And that brings us closer to the final signal, the one that changes everything. This is the one sign that demands the highest level of trust. And ironically, it's also the one most men completely misread or mishandle. It's her past emotional pain from previous relationships. When a woman opens up about how someone before you hurt her, how she was betrayed, manipulated, ignored, or left broken for months, it is not storytelling for attention. It is not a tactic to provoke jealousy. And it is not because she is still emotionally attached to that chapter of her life. It is fear, pure and simple. Fear that history might repeat itself. And by telling you, she is not trying to burden you. She is actually doing something deeply intentional. She is giving you insight into her emotional scars, so you don't unknowingly press on them the same way someone else did. In that moment, she is trusting you with information she once wished she had before she got hurt. That is not casual. That is emotionally significant. Dr. Brené Brown, who has spent decades studying vulnerability and human connection, describes trust as something built through small moments of emotional exposure followed by consistent emotional safety. When a woman shares her heartbreak with you, she is handing you one of those moments. And what you do with it matters more than you think. Because your reaction determines whether she feels safer with you, or whether she quietly starts building emotional defenses you will never directly see forming. And the worst possible response is dismissal. Saying things like, "I'm not him," might be factually correct, but emotionally, it misses the point entirely. She already knows you are not him. What she needs is to feel that you understand why that experience still affects her today. She is not asking for comparison. She is asking for emotional awareness. Now let's move into something that seems small on the surface, but actually reveals something very deep about emotional trust. Her embarrassing habits and private comforts. When she tells you things like she rewatches the same comfort shows over and over, talks to her pet like it understands every word, or eats the most random meals at strange hours without caring how it looks, that is not random sharing. That is emotional exposure. Because women spend a large part of their lives being observed, judged, or subtly evaluated by work, friends, social media, even family. So most of the time, what you see is a curated version of who she is, controlled, edited, presentable. But when she starts showing you the unfiltered version, the messy routines, the weird habits, the silly quirks, she is lowering that mask around you. And that only happens when she feels safe enough not to be judged. Psychologist Arthur Aaron's research on self-disclosure found that intimacy grows significantly when people gradually reveal personal, even trivial details about themselves. Vulnerability is not only about trauma, it is also about being seen without performance. So when she admits she has oddly specific habits, strange comfort routines, or habits she would never post online, she is telling you something simple but powerful. I don't need to impress you anymore. And that shift is huge because performance is replaced with authenticity. Now let's go deeper into something many men overlook entirely, even though it carries serious emotional weight. Her financial reality. Money is one of the most emotionally guarded topics in relationships. People will talk about heartbreak, childhood trauma, and personal struggles long before they talk honestly about debt, income, or financial insecurity. Research from Bankrate in 2022 showed that a significant portion of adults in relationships admit to hiding financial information from their partner. That tells you something important. Financial honesty is not casual. It is selective. So when a woman chooses to tell you the truth about her money situation, whether she is struggling, stable, or even successful, but cautious, it is not just about numbers. It is about transparency. She is letting you see the part of her life that has consequences, pressure, and responsibility attached to it, because she is not just thinking about now. She is thinking about whether you are someone she can realistically build a future with. Financial honesty is not romantic in appearance, but it is deeply serious in meaning. And then comes the final signal, the one that shifts everything emotionally. Her fear of losing you. When a woman expresses concern that she might lose you, whether directly or indirectly, through comments like, "This feels too good to be real," or "I'm scared this won't last," it is easy to misread it as insecurity or neediness. But psychologically, it is something else entirely. It is attachment becoming visible. Attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby, explains that when emotional bonding becomes strong, separation or loss naturally triggers emotional distress. That reaction is not weakness. It is connection forming at a deeper level. Women are socially conditioned to appear independent, composed, and emotionally self-sufficient, so they rarely express fear easily. But when they do, it is because the emotional bond has already crossed a threshold where losing it feels real. At that point, she is not asking you to fix her fear. She is revealing the depth of her attachment to you, and your response becomes the defining moment. If you dismiss it, she learns to emotionally retreat. If you meet it with consistency, reassurance, and emotional stability, the bond deepens in a way that becomes far more grounded and secure. So when you put it all together, the pattern becomes clear. A woman who shares her emotional wounds, her insecurities, her unfiltered habits, her financial truth, and her fear of losing you is not sending mixed signals. She is sending clarity, just not in the loud, obvious way most people expect, because feminine desire does not announce itself. It reveals itself, quietly, gradually, intentionally. And the real question is not whether she is showing you these signs. The real question is whether you are emotionally present enough to recognize them while they are still happening. Because once those moments pass, they don't always come back the same way again. In the end, everything comes down to one simple truth. A woman doesn't always express love through words, but through what she is willing to reveal, trust, and risk with you. If she shares her pain, her insecurities, her unfiltered self, her reality, and even her fear of losing you, she is not being casual. She is emotionally invested at a deep level. Love, for her, is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, gradual, and shown through vulnerability. The real difference is not whether she feels something for you, but whether you are aware enough to recognize it while it is being given.